Ladies and gentlemen, you ever had one of those moments where you feel like you're putting everything into something and yet nobody notices? Nobody cares. You bust your back day in and day out, thinking that eventually someone, anyone will appreciate it. But no, the world keeps moving, people keep living their lives, and there you are, grinding invisible. Now, here's the thing, you got to see, I realize that nobody owes you anything. Ain't nobody out here keeping a scorecard on your efforts. You ain't gonna get a parade for doing what you're supposed to do. Ain't no one handing you a medal for being a good person, for showing up when it's tough, for giving your all even when it feels like you're getting nothing in return. The sooner you understand that, the better. Because here's the cold truth, nobody gives a damn. And that's not a shot at you, that's just how it is. Life don't owe you a damn thing, but you gotta keep pushing, keep showing up, and keep giving it your all. Because at the end of the day, this thing is about you. It's about your commitment. It's about what you're willing to do when no one's watching, when no one's cheering you on. You see, that's the difference between the ones who rise and the ones who fall. The ones who keep pushing, who keep grinding, who keep doing it even when the applause is silent, they're the ones who make it. Not because they expect someone to give them a gold star, but because they've got something inside them that says, I'll keep going anyway. So stop waiting for validation. Stop expecting someone to recognize you. Stop looking for applause. You do it for yourself. You do it because it's in you, not because you're waiting for someone to hand you the approval. You got a purpose, you got a mission. And you need to remember that the only person you really need to prove anything to is the person staring back at you in the mirror. Yeah, nobody gives a shit. But that's okay. You keep moving, keep your head up, keep grinding, keep your integrity, and you'll get where you need to be, not because of anyone else, but because of what's inside you. That's how you win. Life doesn't owe you anything, and that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. We grow up thinking that if we work hard, do the right thing, or give our best effort, the world will reward us in some way. We expect recognition, a pat on the back, a thank you, maybe even a promotion or a raise. We think that if we put in the time, someone will notice, but the harsh reality is nobody's keeping track of your effort. Nobody is obligated to thank you, to notice how much you're doing, or to appreciate your sacrifice. And that's a truth that stings when you first realize it. You can give everything you have, go above and beyond, show up early, stay late, and do the work no one else is willing to do. You can make sacrifices, put others first, and carry burdens that nobody else even knows about. But in the end, the world doesn't owe you anything. You might not get the acknowledgement you think you deserve, and in some cases, you might not get anything at all. And when that happens, people often feel discouraged, disheartened, even defeated. They wonder, what's the point? Why keep trying if nobody cares? But here's the kicker, you don't keep going because of what you expect to get back. You don't keep going because you think the world owes you something for your effort. You keep going because you've made a choice to give your best. You keep going because deep down you know what you're capable of, and you know that your worth isn't tied to whether or not someone recognizes it. You're not doing it for the applause, you're doing it because it's who you are, because you've made a commitment to yourself and your own growth. You're doing it because you know that the only person you need to prove something to is yourself. If you wait for validation, you'll always be waiting. There will always be someone else to compare yourself to, someone else who gets the attention, the recognition, the promotion. But if you can let go of the need for external validation, if you can stop measuring your success by other people's standards, you'll realize that your real success is in the journey, in the discipline, in the growth you experience day by day. The process itself becomes its own reward. The truth is, when you accept that nobody owes you anything, you free yourself. You no longer need the world to give you something in return for your effort. You can focus on what's important, your purpose, your goals, your personal growth. You can embrace the grind without expecting someone to pat you on the back. And in doing so, you'll discover that the satisfaction you get from your work, from your effort, is far more valuable than any external recognition. Self-motivation is the foundation of success, and it's something that has to come from within. There are days when the world won't support you, when your friends won't call, when your colleagues won't notice how much you're pushing, and when your boss won't give you the praise you think you deserve. In those moments, the only thing that will keep you going is your own internal drive. If you're doing things for external reasons, hoping for praise, recognition, or the approval of others, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. The truth is, nobody owes you anything, and nobody has to see your effort. So if you want to achieve something, if you want to grow, it's got to come from within. That inner fire, that commitment to keep going even when no one is watching or cheering you on is what makes the difference between those who succeed and those who quit. The world isn't obligated to notice your hard work, and it's not going to hand you a gold star every time you take a step forward. You don't do it for the thank yous or the high fives. You do it because it matters to you. It's about knowing your own worth and knowing that your efforts are meaningful, even when they're invisible to the world around you. It's easy to feel discouraged when things aren't moving the way you expect them to. You put in the hours, you sacrifice your time, you push through the obstacles, and then you look around and realize that nothing has changed. Maybe no one noticed how late you stayed up working or how much you gave up to make something happen. But that's when you need to remind yourself why you're doing it in the first place. Your motivation has to be stronger than the external validation you think you deserve. If you rely on others to validate your worth, then you're putting your happiness, your progress, and your success in the hands of someone else. That's a dangerous place to be. When you are self-motivated, your work becomes about something much greater than recognition. It's about the growth, the improvement, and the progress you're making within yourself. Every small win, every challenge you overcome, every bit of progress you make is its own reward. It's about the knowledge that you're better than you were yesterday. When you build that internal motivation, you don't need the outside world to tell you how good you're doing because you already know. In life, you're going to encounter times when you feel alone in your efforts. You might question whether it's worth it, whether it even matters if you keep pushing. And that's when your inner motivation becomes your greatest strength. It's when you stop looking for other people to give you the validation and recognition that you seek, and instead you find peace in knowing that you're doing what needs to be done. This kind of mindset, the ability to keep moving forward even when things seem thankless, will carry you farther than any external motivation ever could. Your success isn't dependent on someone else's recognition. It's dependent on your ability to stay focused on your own growth and to push through when it's tough, when no one's there to cheer you on. You're doing it for yourself, for the person you're becoming, and for the goals you set for your own life. The world may not always acknowledge your effort, but when you understand that it's your own internal drive that keeps you moving, you realize that external praise is just a bonus. The real reward is the strength and resilience you build along the way. Persistence is what separates those who make it from those who don't. The world is full of obstacles, setbacks, and challenges. Nobody's journey is easy. But what matters is how you respond when things get tough. You can't rely on the world to encourage you every step of the way. Life doesn't hand you success on a silver platter. It's earned step by step, even when no one's watching or congratulating you. When you keep going, when you continue to push forward despite the lack of recognition or reward, that's when the real work is being done. That's where the growth happens, not when the crowd cheers, but when you're doing it on your own in silence without anyone pushing you. Success isn't a one-time event. It's a process. It's made up of countless small, unseen actions. And those actions often go unnoticed by the people around you. Maybe your colleagues don't see the extra hours you're putting in or the sacrifices you're making to improve. Maybe your family doesn't recognize the emotional toll it's taking on you. You might give everything you have and still there's no applause. But that's not the point. The point is that you keep going. You keep showing up, you keep doing the work because you understand that success is built in those quiet, uncelebrated moments. Most people expect immediate results. They expect that when they put in the effort, they'll see something come back to them. But that's not how it works. If you're expecting the rewards right away, if you're expecting a trophy for every small win, you're going to be disappointed. It's about delayed gratification. It's about investing in yourself and your goals without expecting to see a return on that investment in the short term. If you can learn to keep pushing without needing instant feedback, you'll discover something powerful: your ability to rely on yourself, to trust in the process. There will always be moments when it feels like you're working harder than everyone else. And still, you don't get the recognition you think you deserve. But that's where you find out what you're made of. When you're not getting the attention, when the world isn't patting you on the back, that's when you have to dig deep and remind yourself why you're doing it. If you're doing it for the approval of others, you're never going to last. You're never going to reach the level of success you're capable of. But if you're doing it for yourself because you understand the value of the work, because you know that growth happens in the struggle, then you'll find a way to keep moving forward no matter how tough it gets. True persistence isn't about staying in the game because you think you're going to get something out of it. It's about staying in the game because it's who you are. It's about having that internal commitment to keep going regardless of external circumstances. The journey is long, and it's easy to get discouraged when progress is slow or when no one notices how hard you're working. But that's when the real test of character happens. That's when you show what you're made of. It's not about waiting for the applause, it's about knowing that you're doing what you're supposed to do, regardless of whether anyone sees it or not. When you can find pride in your effort, in the process itself, you've unlocked a level of persistence that will carry you through anything. When you rely on external validation, you give up control over your own journey. Waiting for someone to notice, to acknowledge your hard work, or to give you the credit you think you deserve can be draining. It's easy to get caught up in seeking approval from others. You work hard, you sacrifice your time, you give everything you have, and all you want is for someone to see it and say, well done, but that's the problem. If you're constantly looking outside of yourself for validation, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. You can spend years, decades even, giving everything you've got, only to find that people still don't recognize your worth. And in that moment, if your sense of value is tied to what others think of you, it can be crushing. You've poured everything into something and no one even cares. But here's the thing: your value, your worth, your success should never be dependent on someone else's recognition. When you understand that, you take back the power. You stop waiting for the applause, the accolades, or the approval. Instead, you focus on the work itself, on the journey, on what you're learning and who you're becoming as a result of it. If you only value yourself based on what others think, you'll always be playing a game you can't win. You'll always be on the outside looking in, hoping someone will finally see what you're doing. But when you take the power back and stop waiting for validation, you free yourself from that cycle. You start to value your own effort. You realize that every step forward, every hour of hard work is an accomplishment in itself. It's a mindset shift, but it's one that can change everything. Instead of being fixated on the end result or the recognition, you focus on the process. You focus on the fact that you're putting in the work, you're improving, and you're getting closer to where you want to be. In those quiet moments when no one is watching and no one is applauding, you're still moving forward, you're still progressing. And that's the reward. When you can find fulfillment in the act of doing rather than in what others think of it, you unlock a level of self-reliance and resilience that can carry you through anything. People will come and go, they will notice when they notice, and they will applaud when it's convenient for them. But you can't let that determine your worth. You can't let someone else's recognition become the measuring stick for your success. It's too unreliable. You need to build a foundation that's solid, that's rooted in your own sense of purpose and your own values. That's the kind of strength that allows you to keep going even when you feel like no one sees you. That's the kind of strength that keeps you grounded, that allows you to stay focused on the work, on the journey, on what's inside you. And let's be clear, this doesn't mean you should ignore feedback or never seek improvement. It means that your sense of success and fulfillment comes from within, not from the external world. You're not waiting for someone else's approval to decide if you're on the right path. You trust yourself enough to know that the work you're doing is meaningful, whether anyone else recognizes it or not. You've got to be your own biggest supporter, your own source of validation. Because at the end of the day, when the applause fades, when the crowd disperses, and when no one's around to tell you how well you're doing, the only thing that will keep you moving is that inner belief that what you're doing matters. And when you realize that, you'll understand that you don't need anyone else's approval to keep going. Success is a journey, not a destination, and the sooner you embrace this truth, the more empowered you'll feel. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that one big moment of recognition will validate everything you've worked for. We live in a world where people often look for that external acknowledgement, a raise, a promotion, praise from peers or family. But if you depend on that moment of external recognition, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Because in truth, nobody's watching you as closely as you think. People are wrapped up in their own lives, their own struggles, and their own goals. Your effort may go unnoticed, your late nights may be forgotten, and your sacrifices might not even be acknowledged. But that's not a reflection of your worth or your contribution, it's just the way things are. The world doesn't owe you anything, and the more you realize this, the more freedom you'll find. What matters is what happens when no one is there to see. It's easy to keep going when you're getting praise or recognition, but true success is built when no one is watching. It's about those days when you have to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. It's about continuing to work towards your goals even when the road seems long and the results feel distant. The secret to persistence is learning to appreciate the process itself. It's finding fulfillment not in the praise you'll receive in the future, but in the satisfaction that comes from knowing you're doing your best right now. When you understand that the effort you put in today is its own reward, you stop relying on others for validation. Instead, you begin to recognize that your value is not based on external circumstances, but on the internal growth you're experiencing with every step you take. The truth is, nobody's going to care as much about your goals as you do. They might cheer for you, they might say they believe in you, but when the tough times hit, they won't be there to push you through. That responsibility lies with you. And you have to learn to carry it, even when the weight feels heavy. When nobody gives a shit, when there's no applause, when you're left to deal with the grind on your own, that's when the real test comes. It's in those moments of solitude that you build character. You realize that the most important person to prove something to is yourself. You're doing this for you. You're doing this because you know that the effort you put in today will pay off tomorrow, even if you can't see it yet. In the end, the only person who truly knows how much you've invested in something is you. It's your own personal journey. You can't compare it to anyone else's because no one else has walked the same path. And the more you rely on external feedback, the more you tie your worth to things that are out of your control. But when you take pride in doing the work for its own sake, when you trust that every small step forward counts, even if it's unnoticed, you'll start to see progress that no one can take away from you. This is the power of persistence. It's about understanding that the work itself is the reward. So don't wait for the world to validate your efforts. Don't wait for the applause. Keep going, even when it feels like nobody cares. Because in the end, it's the quiet moments of persistence that lead to the biggest changes, and it's that internal commitment to your goals that will bring you the success you're seeking. You do it because it's in you, because you know you're capable of more than you've been given credit for, and because ultimately you're doing this for the person you are becoming, not for the recognition that comes afterward.